A lack of trust is your biggest expense. Trust is a confident belief in a person or product or an organization.
All I talk about is trust. All I research on is trust. The impact of trust, two fundamental beliefs. Lack of trust is our biggest expense, and there's a way to build it.
Hey, our first guest is a national best-selling author of The Trust Edge.
We're here with David Horsager.
This brand new book, The Trust Edge.
I believe a lack of trust is the biggest expense of a person, a relationship. I believe everything of value is built on trust, from the greatest global governments to the greatest financial institutions to every relationship you have.
David Horsager is with us in Tucson.
We are so thrilled to have him with us. We want to welcome to the stage Dave Horsager.
There's a lot of reasons we don't trust someone. We don't trust the arrogant, do we? How many of you know a know-it-all? How many sit next to one right now? When you're both raising your hand, we got a problem. It's the little things done consistently that make the biggest difference in every area of life. If I'm overweight, it's because I've had too many mocha lattes over months, years, not because I ate too much this morning for breakfast. If I'm a good husband, it's because I've loved and honored my wife over years, not because I gave her a diamond ring and a dozen roses one time. Not that that wouldn't help. How many think transparency is trusted? Transparency is the word of the day, isn't it? In business, vulnerability, got to be transparent. Got to be transparent. And yet confidentiality is also trusted. That's why someone who's really trusted must be as transparent as they can while being as confidential as they ought. Many of us think confidence is trusted, but arrogance isn't. Does that ever overlap for people? How? Doesn't matter if we're working with the biggest companies or the smallest practices. You can always get to something you can do differently starting today or tomorrow if you ask how long enough.
Your biggest problem is not what you think it is. It's not a leadership problem, it's not a sales problem, it's not even an engagement problem. It's a trust problem. Do you want to be the most trusted in your industry? David Horsager teaches the fastest way to build and sustain trust, even amidst change. David is the leading expert on how to build trust in a way that will increase sales, drive profits, and create meaningful results for everyone from elite brands and businesses to global governments. As CEO of Trust Edge Leadership Institute and best-selling author, he has taken the platform across the United States and on 6 continents. He invented the Enterprise Trust Indicator and leads the charge in the nation's foremost trust study, the Trust Outlook.
I attend hundreds of leadership conferences, and David's presentation this morning was the best that I've ever heard.
Do not share this program with any of our competitors.
The message sank in with the top leadership of the country, especially the president and the deputy president. The message went home, sank home deep, and it was very clear.
Before I did my graduate research 15 years ago on trust, I thought I knew it all about trust. How many think it takes a long time to build trust? Yeah? It often does, and yet on 9/11, in a moment of crisis, complete strangers trust each other like that if they were running the same direction. I know you can learn some places how to lose 50 pounds in a week and make $1 million in a month. Trust isn't like that, but it is the only way I know to real, genuine success at anything. Salesperson, professor, parent, or friend. It's not up to anybody else. To be trusted actually does take work, and where all kinds of people and all kinds of experts want to say, oh, you do it this way, and oh, if you give him a chocolate bar, and oh, if you pay him, and oh, if you... Sometime we got to find somebody that has the character to just do it. The trusted brand, you'll pay way more, won't you? You'll come back. You'll tell others. The trusted leader gets followed. The trusted salesperson gets bought from. A lack of trust is your biggest expense, and I believe after the research and everything else, there is nothing more important, whether it's at home or at work, than being trusted. It affects the bottom line, it affects time, it affects productivity more than anything. The only way to rebuild trust, ladies and gentlemen, the only way is to make and keep a commitment. The point is this. Can I look at that? Have I said how until I know I can do something differently starting today or tomorrow? I was asked not too long ago to go to speak in Banff, Canada. How many have been to Banff? Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world, isn't it? I was asked to go up there to speak to a bunch of lawyers on trust. And anyway, for those of you, haven't been to Banff, it's beautiful. You fly here from Minneapolis to Calgary. We dropped the 4 kids at the farm with Grandma and Grandpa, and then Lisa and I went and stayed at that Banff Springs. It was beautiful. But
what happens is you fly into Calgary and then you get a rental car, at least we did, and we started driving up the mountain. Banff is right in the middle of the Canadian Rocky Mountains. So you have to go through by the guard shack where the park rangers are. You pay a little fee, they put a sticker on your car, you're legal to go into the Canadian Rockies, and then they give you this. This is the Parks Canada Mountain Guide. This is your guide for going in to the Canadian Rocky Mountains. Lisa is driving the rental car, so I can think about what I'm going to say to these attorneys. I start looking at the scenery. I start flipping through the Parks Canada Mountain Guide until something catches my attention. Bear attacks. There are two kinds of bear attacks. Ones that hurt and ones that don't. This is word for word. I'm not going to make any of this up. Never run. Don't climb a tree unless you know that you have time to climb at least 10 feet before the bear reaches you. I've never raced a bear. I don't know how long. Bears often mock charge or run past you. The bear might charge you many times before leaving the area. Don't shoot it when it's charging. The bear almost always lives long enough to maul the shooter severely. Welcome to Canada. If the bear does make contact with you, play dead. It was written by a bear. Lie on your stomach with your legs apart. Cover the back of your head and neck with your hands. I'm going to get frisked by a bear. Almost as if to say, don't worry. Defensive attacks seldom last more than 2 minutes. If the attack continues, it might have shifted from defensive to predatory. In this case, fight back. What? Ow! Take another bite. You got 20 more seconds. Now try to escape into a building or a car. This is the last line, and it's in bold letters. If you can't escape, no longer play dead. This might work with bears. It does not work in life. We got to wake up.
Jason was actually studying the coffee and donut stands that get pushed out weekday mornings in Manhattan. He noticed one stand's different than all the others. Ralph's stand. If you go up to Ralph's stand and you ask for one glazed donut, Ralph shouts back, 75 cents. If you try to pay Ralph a buck, a dollar bill for that 75-cent donut, Ralph motions you on to the end of his little shop on wheels where there's a tray. Change thrown about. In the middle of the tray, a cup. In the middle of the cup, cash bills sticking out of the cup on a tray, on a stand in New York City. What are you supposed to do at Ralph's stand? Make your own change and pay what you owe. Now, we might expect this where I grew up. Verndale, Minnesota. 500 people. 3 hours drive from Minneapolis, St. Paul. The 1,500-acre farm that I grew up on was actually 8 miles from Verndale. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I remember a veggie stand handled just this way. It's on the trust or honor principle, right? What happened at Ralph's stand? Ralph served twice the customers of any other stand day in and day out. He served them in half the time because he didn't have to take his latex gloves off like all the other vendors. And Ralph had loyal customers. They loved coming to Ralph's stand. Why? Trust.
In north central Minnesota, like I said, only 500 people in Verndale. But once a year, there's a rodeo. At this place, they sell horses. 2,000 people come every night for 3 nights in a row. They come from counties around. Now, my mom and dad kept calling, and they kept saying, Dad, David, when are you going to bring your grandkids up? When are you going to bring your grandkids up? Because we live in the cities now. That's 3 hours away from the farm. So finally, a few years ago, I said, Dad, we'll be there. So that Friday, we got them out of school just a little bit early. We drove up the a 3-hour drive, and by the way, we left the cities and we put on the stuff we love to wear in Verndale. We got the buckles, we got the cowboy boots, we got the hats, and we were ready for Verndale. We get to Verndale. Dad has tickets for us, Dad and Mom. And we get to the short line, we get a place on the bleachers for the Verndale Rodeo. My kids are so excited. If you haven't been to a rodeo for a while, first half of the rodeo, cowboys and cowgirls, they ride things and they rope things. Second half of the rodeo, they ride things and they get bucked off of things. Right? But in the middle is your opportunity for the locals to get involved. They call it mutton busting. Now, some of y'all know what this is. You in Texas, Oklahoma, you understand this. This is a new rodeo in Minnesota. We don't know how to do this very well yet. So it's almost halftime, and the big Texas announcer down by the American flag gets on the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost time for mutton busting, and he grabs the hat. Those of you families and parents and kids that put your names in the hat, first 8 kids that I draw out of the hat, you come on down here to the bull gate. It's your night for mutton busting. If you don't know what mutton busting is, this is where they let 5 to 8-year-old kids see how long they can last riding a sheep. And this night, it's big Suffolks, big sheep. So he starts reading off the names. Billy, Josie, Vanessa Horsager, Isaiah Horsager. I look over at the stoic Norwegian. He just smiles. I put my arms around my 2 that were in that age category. They look up at me in terror. We walk down to what they call the bull gate. There's a lady there to tell us how it works. All right, kids, this is what's going to happen. You just jump on the sheep, you hold on, the sheep takes off. Don't worry, though. The whole arena is sand. It's fun. My kids are not buying it. Now, you know how to do this, Oklahoma and Texas, but we don't know how to do this because in Minnesota, they sit up there like this, they put their hands on the wool, the sheep skedaddles out of there, and the kid goes bang. Every kid, every night, they last 2 feet. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, why do you even do this? Oh, you got to give the cowboys and cowgirls a break. So the cowboys and cowgirls, they line up on the rail, and they watch this, and everybody gets a little time off at halftime, these kids, and they're cute, they said. My daughter's one of the last to go. I said, Vanessa, you can't do it like that. You fall off. Vanessa, you got to take those, she turned 8 that day. You got to take those dangly 8-year-olds, she's the lightest kid in her class. You got to take those dangly 8-year-old legs, you got to wrap them around the belly, you got to dig your heels in as hard as you can. And Vanessa, you can't sit up like that. You got to lay down. You got to Velcro your belly to that wool. You got to wrap your arms around the neck. You got to dig your fingers into the wool. And Vanessa, whatever you do, don't let go. Hold on. I'm a great dad. They open the bull gate. That sheep tears out of there. You know what that sheep does? That sheep, you know the other sheep that dumped all the kids before? They go hang out together in the corner and they laugh. That's what sheep do. This sheep runs straight over to those sheep as fast as it can. It's running over that sheep. The first sheep it sees, it butts it right in the side. Bam! She goes, ah! But she holds on. She's a little bit sideways now, but that sheep doesn't know what to do, so it takes off around the arena. Second time around the arena, 2,000 people, Verndale, Minnesota, stand up. They start, look at the little kid. You believe they've never seen this in Verndale. Look at the stoic Norwegian has a tear. $2,000 people screaming and cheering. Third time around the arena. The clowns come out. Little girl, you can let go now. She will not let go. Finally, they get that sheep stopped over in the corner, but she will not get off. Texas announcer didn't know what to say. Is there a dad here? I walk out into that arena, 2,000 people stay screaming and cheering. The rodeo queen gets off her perch and walks down her steps and into the middle of the arena with a trophy for the kid that lasted the longest. I walk over and I pick off my daughter. She grabs onto my neck. And as I walk toward the middle, I will never forget what Vanessa said in my ear that night. Daddy, why did the clown say let go? You said never let go! She was committed! At the end of the day, with this trust stuff, you gotta decide to decide. My hope for you, in your community, in your practice, in your family, and in your life, is that you would enjoy the greatest advantage of all time, something we call the trust edge. Have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.